Hello, this is Joel Smith here with GeekOut Southwest. Today I'm interviewing Christian Ward, artist, comic book and otherwise. Christian, hello.
Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm absolutely fine.
Good.
We are here in the Shropshire Coffee House, kind venue of Geek Out Shrewsbury Meets, last Thursday of every month. So, Christian, where did you get started with art?
Oh, what a question. Well, pubescent is where I got started. And it just kind of went from there. I always wanted to be, funnily enough, a comic book artist. Did it at school, did it at GCSE, went on to do it at university, then went and got a boring job at working as a school teacher, and eventually escaped that and doing the comics now.
Fantastic. So, where then did you get your break in comic books?
Well, it's funny because I used to use comics when I was teaching. So if I wanted to teach live drawing, a way of kind of getting pupils into the kind of live drawing or composition skills is I would use comics in a way to sort of like sneak in the learning. And I had a kind of cheeky year 9 lad who was basically, if you're so good at this, why don't you do it? And that was kind of the spark. And even though it was always what I wanted to do, I never actually really tried. I tried to do illustration for years, and I worked as a kind of painter, doing exhibitions and the like. So nothing that was going to pay the bills significantly. But I've never actually tried to be a comic book artist. And at this point, my work was quite eclectic. It was very kind of contemporary. It didn't look like comic book art. But I thought, because I was such a fan of comics, and I was this is way before social media. I used to chat to a few comic book artists on this is how old it is, on AIM, AOL, Instant Messenger. And so I used to talk to some guys, and I became friendly with a guy called Scott Wagner, who's the co-creator of an American indie comic called Atomic Robot. Fantastic comic if you're into kind of like really like sort of B-movie style kind of Indiana Jones. What if Indiana Jones was a robot? That's kind of, and it's through time. That's kind of like the bag. And so I got chatting to this guy because we met on the forum, and they were looking for 5-page bonus pages in the back of each issue. So I said, I'd like to have a go at that. 5 pages, that seems doable. It'd be interesting what would happen. Yeah. And so that was my first comic. Obviously, did them as
you typical sort of alternative covers sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I did that, and those 5 pages, without any exaggeration, took me around 3 months. Insane. Yeah. I mean, that's, and it was just a huge learning curve. And there was a big deadline. It was like, oh, get it to us whenever, and we'll use it whenever. Yeah. I was working as a teacher at the time, so I was working full time. But there was something about doing these pages that just sort of lit a match. It just got me. I was like, ooh. And the response to it was small. So at that point, they had quite a small audience. But even from the guys that were working on the book, the response was quite exciting and got me thinking. I mean, obviously, when I looked at the pages, they were awful, full of mistakes. I can't draw anatomy. It's awful. Like no one would hire me. They don't look like comics because I love comics that look like comics in a way. So in my mind, I was failing in this weird way.
I was going to say it wasn't comic book art as you know it.
Yeah, exactly. So I did that, and then from there, I got spotted by a guy called Nathan Edmondson, who was pitching his first comic to Image Comics at the time. And he sent the idea to me because, funnily enough, he was looking for an artist that didn't look like a typical comic artist. So he was like searching illustration forums and that. And so we pitched that. I came on board with him, and then Image Comics said yes. And I did Olympus, which was my first book at Image. While I was working full-time as a school teacher, and that was a real baptism of fire. Just literally working as a day, and at night, it was like being a superhero myself. I'd like kind of put the cape on and then work the night shift from 7 till 2, 3 o'clock, and then up at 7 to go and teach in the morning. Those kids got some excellent lessons, I can tell you.
I was going to say, something that Tim and I can both appreciate, working 9 to 5, as it were, and then coming home and going after your passions all evening, as it were.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to earn it.
Exactly.
I think there's a bit of it you have to kind of. I mean, some people are really lucky and they get a break and straight out of college, or they get offered a job which pays really well, which is kind of happened to me now. But like, I think kind of so many people want to do things within the kind of geek industry and culture that you have to step above that by just working as hard as you can.
Really got to stand out.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got a new book coming out on May the 3rd, which in theory, by the time this goes out, should be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tell us about the new book.
We're in the future.
We are in the future.
Yeah. Well, it's my first ongoing Marvel book. I've done covers for Marvel for the last few years, and I worked with Kieran Gillen on a 5-page short in Young Avengers a couple of years ago. But this is my first ongoing. I basically worked with a really excellent editor called Will Moss, and I've been doing covers for him, and I've done a couple of fill-in issues for him, and he kind of came to me with this pitch, this new book. Now, at the time, I was working on a book called Odyssey, which is my create own book that I do with Matt Fraction at Image, that's like our passion project. Mm-hmm. But being a passion project, it's one that we love more than anyone else, I suppose. We've got a very small but loyal fan base, but at the same time, I've just moved to town. We've just bought a house that's fallen to pieces. That needs a lot of money. We've got a baby on the way. And so suddenly, the passion projects felt, actually, is this the most sensible thing to be doing at the moment? So Will came along with his proposal, and the proposal was they were giving a very old character called Black Bolt his first solo book. He's never had a solo book before, and he was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in the early 60s. I don't actually know. He's an old character, though. He was created alongside Fantastic Four.
Yes.
And so he offered me this book with the tantalising lore I can't imagine anyone else doing it, which really got me. I mean, he knew what he was doing, hook, line and sinker.
Properly baited into
it.
Yeah.
It's just like, pay me a compliment and I'm yours, basically. But I ummed and ahed over it just because I kind of, I love working with Matt on Odyssey. And I kind of wanted to get kind of his blessing, and he was so gracious. And the great thing is obviously we could go back to Odyssey and do that. But so for the meantime, I'm working on Black Bolt. First issue, as I said, comes out tomorrow with the future.
Yeah.
And it's with a very acclaimed fantasy novelist called Saladin Ahmed, and he huge comic book fan, but he's never done a comic book before, so it's his first comic book.
Potentially his break then, yeah.
Within that industry, definitely. But his first book, which I believe is called Presence of the Silver Moon, I believe. I can't remember. I should have found that. Sorry,
I should find it.
We'll put that in.
We'll include it in the write-up.
So he's been nominated for dozens of awards. Huge acclaim. I believe he won the Hugo Award for it. So an excellent writer, and there's lots of anticipation about what is he going to do for the comic book. This is going to be fantastic. So we got put together, clicked immediately, and what's great is we've taken this very old character and we're doing something very strange and weird with him.
Okay.
Which is really interesting. I don't know whether you know the character, but in the comics, Black Bolt can't talk, because when he does talk, worlds shatter.
Yes.
That's his power. And so we've got this very interesting idea that what you do with a character who can't talk and is silent, and from a visual artist, how do I, it's a real challenge for me to be able to, how am I going to communicate all these emotional cues and what's going on in his head with a look, with a turn of the head, and that's, I love quite big special effects and kind of like really flashy pages, but sometimes
subtlety.
It's very exciting. So we've done this very kind of eclectic, weird little book, which puts Black Bolt in an intergalactic cosmic prison, and he's locked in there with Crusher Creed, the Absorbing Man. We've created some new Marvel characters, which is a real thrill to think that we've now created these characters that potentially another writer.
I was going to say may very well be picked up
exactly
months, years, decades down the line.
Yeah, so we've got a badass Skrull barbarian woman who's just this. She's amazing. We've got some really old, which I can't say who yet because they're going to be kind of like spoilers. But we're using a lot of old school characters we've not seen for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's been a real thrill to kind of redesign them. Lots of Kirby classics in there. We've also got a cameo from my all-time favourite comic book character when I was growing up, a character called Death's Head. For all the Marvel UK fans who know him.
That rings a very loud bell, actually. Yeah.
He appeared in the pages of Transformers, and then he went into the pages of Doctor Who, and then he went to the pages of. He's met more fictional characters. He's practically meta. It's ridiculous. So I got to feature him, which was a childhood dream. It's very strange. Feel like it feels very much like a Euro sci-fi, like heavy metal. And so the first issue comes out tomorrow, and then it's going to be an ongoing series. I'm doing the first 6 issues, hopefully the first 7, likely to have a little bit of a break because of the Baba. Then I'll go back and do a couple more, and then the plan is then to go back and do some Odyssey, or maybe juggle some Odyssey alongside the Marvel stuff.
Great long-term plan coming out of this one book then.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Hopefully,
Sort of thinking to the future again, is there anything that you would like to work on in the future? Any characters or any projects that you'd really like to pick up?
Dozens. I've never not met a comic book artist that doesn't want to work on Batman. And then there's something about Batman that's kind of up there. So that's a given. I would love to do a book with Batman. There's a guy working on Batman at the moment called Tom King who writes Batman. He wrote a book for Marvel called Vision last year, based on the red robot guy who was in the Avengers movie. And Tom King is probably the most exciting writer in comics at the moment. So there's that idea that not only could you aim to work on Batman, you could also aim to work with perhaps the best writer in the industry at the moment. So that would be like a number one goal, but frankly, I've got to get in line, and I'm not under any illusions for that. Less kind of ambitiously, I'm quite excited about writing my own books. Written a lot of scripts, and the goal had always been to write and draw my own comics, and so that's hopefully something that I'll do tail end of this year or the start of next year, even if it's just something small. I'm talking to Marvel very casually about maybe doing something very casually. I mean, they're obviously going to be waiting to see how I do with Black Bolt, make sure I don't miss any deadlines, make sure I'm okay to work with, and then maybe we can have those conversations. Because I would love to do a Death Set series. I would also love to do, there's a character who's a very obscure 90s character called Sleepwalker.
Okay.
He's very old, very obscure. He was created by this guy who wrote the whole series. I believe there was maybe 12 issues, and he's essentially like Marvel's version of the Sandman. So if Marvel was going to do the Sandman and make him a superhero, what would he be? And he's kind of like a dream cop.
Okay, yeah.
Who kind of captures escape dreams. That's probably the best way to describe it. So just very weird.
Definitely one to look up.
Yeah. Very psychedelic. And obviously with my work, having that kind of psychedelic kind of like weird angle, he would be kind of like a good dream go-to. Other than him, I mean, I've always wanted to do a Doctor Strange comic, but after the film, again, join the queue.
High bar,
Everybody wants to do him.
Final question then, Christian. What would you say, I think we could probably guess, but what would you say is your geekiest passion?
Oh, I think you can
I think I can probably make an education.
It's funny actually, because I was going to just come out with comics, but it's definitely a kind of a balance. It's between comics and movies. But I think there's a common thread in there, and I think the common thread still is
And getting bigger as well.
yeah, and it's that idea of kind of just I love stories, so I love a film that's really interesting and it just has a lot of kind of like great story and it's something that surprises me. And the same thing in comics. What's interesting is I thought I would go off comics, working in comics.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause if you work in a chocolate store, you don't want chocolate.
Exactly, yeah.
But what I found is the opposites happen. I've got such admiration for amazing comics, knowing how hard they are to do, that it's made me appreciate comics even more just because of like, I notice how good something's structured or paced or whatever. And the same goes for film or good TV for that matter. You know, from the point of view of the scripts and the pacing, I really pick up that's so good, and it's great. You know, but one thing I want to say before we go is I'm doing a signing, if that's okay, that I mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Shrewsbury. So for anyone that's listening in Shrewsbury, I'm going to be doing it at the new location for Infinity and Beyond. I don't know if you guys can kind of put up a link.
We can absolutely put up a link for Infinity and Beyond.
Yeah, it's their new venue, which is going to be. It's called Pennyworth House, which is obviously a callback to a certain Butler.
Yeah.
And it's on. I'm just looking it up. Leith Hill Road.
Leith Hill
Road, and that's so that's Friday the 5th of May, from 7 till 9, just to give nice to support some the local community, give them a bit of a shout out. And also doing a signing in London and Birmingham, but they'll all be on my Twitter. So that's
fantastic.
Fine. Brilliant.
Christian Ward, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. Cheers.